What if the history of our world hides a terrifying secret buried beneath the sands of time? Long before the floodwaters cleansed the earth, there existed a civilization where fallen angels reigned as gods and monstrous giants, the Nephilim, enslaved humanity in a reign of blood and sorcery. This was not merely a natural disaster, it was a cosmic war between absolute purity and ultimate corruption, a time when the very genetic fabric of life was under siege. Today we peel back the veil on the Watchers, the forbidden knowledge they taught, and the righteous fury that swallowed an entire age. You have entered the Guardians of the Covenant, where we decode the prophetic warnings of the past. If you are ready to witness the truth, smash that like button, share this video to spread the light, and subscribe now to join our mission to uncover the mysteries of the Bible. Prepare your spirit, for the story begins not with destruction, but with a light that hovered over a perfect earth before the shadows began to move. The light of creation still hovered over the earth, a pure and living radiance, but something ancient and malevolent was already moving in the shadows. In the beginning, the earth was perfect, untouched by the decay of time. It was a place of unimaginable splendor where mountains rose in majesty, the seas danced with the wind, and the skies seemed to sing a melody of eternal peace. The animals lived in absolute harmony, and the breeze drifting through the garden carried the scent of eternity itself. It was the dawn of existence, a time when man walked with the Almighty in the cool of the day. Adam stood in awe, contemplating the brilliance of the morning light filtering through the leaves of Eden, while Eve smiled as the animals gathered around her in complete trust. "All of this was given to us," she whispered with tear-filled eyes, overwhelmed by the magnitude of the gift. Adam replied with reverence, realizing that they were not just created, they were deeply loved. But perfection is fragile. All it took was a whisper, a single choice, and everything changed forever. A new sound echoed among the trees, the hiss of doubt. The serpent, beautiful and shining, introduced the first thought of rebellion, and with it came the downfall. Eden, once a home, became a fading memory as Adam and Eve left the garden, their hearts filled with shame and a desperate longing for what was lost. A flaming sword was placed at the entrance, marking the heartbreaking separation between heaven and earth. When Eve gave birth to her first son, Cain, there were tears in her eyes and blood in her womb. It was the beginning of humanity, but also the beginning of pain. As the generations passed, two paths emerged. Cain grew up proud and distant, while his brother Abel was humble, his heart dedicated to the Lord. When jealousy turned into poison, the field became a tomb, and the blood of the righteous cried out from the earth. Cain fled, leaving behind his mother's gaze and his father's silence. But life went on. Seth was born, carrying a lineage that still sought the Creator, yet civilization was born at a breathless pace. Men lived for centuries, their lives stretching like waves in an ocean of time. They erected tents, domesticated animals, and shaped metals. Jubal, the master of melodies, created the first flutes and harps, while Tubal-Cain forged spears and swords. Art and war were born together. Beauty and destruction walked side by side. Cities grew, leaders became kings, and rough stone palaces rose in the valleys. Yet high above, the Lord saw the distance between him and man growing wider. Faith was giving way to power, and the search for the divine was replaced by self-exaltation. Creation itself began to groan under the weight of man's choice. The trees seemed less green, the skies less clear, and the earth restless. And then came the whispers that would change the course of history forever. Ancient tales spoke of celestial beings descending to earth, the Watchers. They came from above, angels assigned to observe humanity, but they broke the boundaries of their mission. Their eyes longed for the earth, and they murmured among themselves, captivated by the beauty of the daughters of men. On the summit of Mount Hermon, 200 of them made a pact, swearing never to return without first taking human wives. They descended and were received as gods. Their robes shone with a terrifying glory, their voices were like calm thunder, and their eyes penetrated the soul. Women desired them, men feared them, but the children born from these forbidden unions were not ordinary. They were the Nephilim, the giants, the heroes of renown, the first tyrants. They grew in stature, strength, and arrogance, and cities built statues in their honor. But something was terribly wrong. They did not age like humans, and their hunger was insatiable. First they ate the harvest, then the cattle, and when there was no more food, they turned against humans themselves. The fertile plains became fields of slavery, and the Nephilim demanded blood tributes. The Watchers, now corrupted, taught humanity forbidden secrets: witchcraft, astrology, genetic manipulation, and the art of war. Azazel taught men to forge weapons and women how to seduce, turning war into an art and lust into a religion. Blood flowed over stones like wine. In the midst of this collapsing world, a new race of creatures was born: hybrids, abominations, beasts crossed with men, winged serpents, and men with eyes of fire. Creation was being violated, and the heavens watched in silence. Yet one man refused to be silent. Enoch, a descendant of Seth, walked with God. His eyes saw beyond the veil, and his dreams were prophetic. In a vision he saw the throne of God and heard the command to proclaim the coming judgment. Enoch stood before the crowds, shouting that the Watchers would be judged and the earth washed by waters never seen before. They mocked him, laughed at his words, and tried to silence him. But Enoch was not afraid. He wrote everything on scrolls of stone and skin, recording the secrets of portals, celestial spheres, and the angelic hosts. Then one day, Enoch disappeared. God had taken him, sparing him from the darkness to come. But without his presence, the shadows deepened. Without warning and without limits, the Watchers continued their works. The forests began to wilt, the ground trembled, and the stars themselves seemed less bright, as if the very universe was holding its breath for the catastrophe that was about to unfold. Nature itself groaned under the crushing weight of corruption, a deep, guttural cry from the earth that finally reached the heavens. The Most High, seated upon the throne of eternity, summoned his holy angels, for the time of patience had ended. What has been done cannot continue, the decree resonated through the celestial realms. The Watchers will be chained, their children extinguished, and the land purified by water. The archangel Uriel was swiftly sent to Enoch, who was already among the heavens, to record the irrevocable sentence of the fallen angels, while Michael, Raphael, and Gabriel prepared their legions for the execution of divine judgment. Yet on earth, the corruption only spread deeper like a gangrenous wound. Men were building towering ziggurats to challenge the heavens, while women offered their own children in horrific rituals to the Nephilim, the innocent blood crying out from the ground in a chorus of agony. While the Watchers taught the forbidden arts of controlling the elements, the world burned with magic, cruelty, and a suffocating darkness. The nights were no longer silent. The wind carried the echoes of screams, the ground cracked as if in pain, and in the skies, lightning danced without thunder, a terrifying omen that all of creation knew something terrible was approaching, a forgotten judgment promised in ancient times. Amidst this chaotic symphony of evil, a single lineage still held on. The descendants of Seth, though weakened and few, preserved the fading memory of the Creator. They hoped, prayed, and taught their children that not everything was lost. Among them stood a quiet, fair, and hard-working man named Noah. While others lost themselves in revelry and violence, he walked among the trees, listening to the voice of the wind. Men scoffed at him, calling him old-fashioned, a dreamer out of touch with reality. But Noah held a secret that did not come from men. He listened to the voice of God. When walking through the fields, he felt the presence of the Almighty as a gentle breeze among the leaves, and he taught his sons, Shem, Ham, and Japheth, to fear the Lord, even amidst the most corrupt generation that ever inhabited the earth. Then came the night when the sky opened up, shimmering in dark shades humanity had never seen before. A divine presence surrounded Noah, and a voice like rolling thunder spoke to his spirit. The end of all flesh has come before me. The earth is full of violence. Make yourself an ark of cypress wood. Noah fell to his knees, trembling, asking, Lord, how will that be? And the voice continued, giving the precise measures, promising, with you I will establish my covenant. The next morning, Noah gathered his family and spoke with a firmness that silenced their fears. God spoke to me. Judgment will come in the form of water. We must build. And so the great project began. The wood was cut, and the rhythmic sound of axes echoed through valleys that had never known rain. People from the cities laughed as they passed by, jeering, Look at the madman! Who builds a ship where there is no sea? Noah did not respond. Sweat dripped from his face as he placed beam upon beam, driven by a faith that saw what others could not. Meanwhile, the Nephilim ruled the cities with an iron fist, forcing men to fight to the death for entertainment, while the gods, now deformed in their essence, lived in palaces built by slaves. But as the ark grew into a wooden fortress, Michael was ordered to attack. With heavenly fury, he descended like a fiery storm, accompanied by hosts armed with swords of light. The heavens and the earth trembled as giants fell in epic battles, their dying voices shaking the valleys, and the earth opened fissures to swallow their carcasses. The watchers were chained and cast into the depths where eternal darkness awaited them. Yet the humans did not repent. Noah preached while hammering, Repent, there is still time. But more laughter was the only response. Then the signs appeared. The moon turned blood red, wild animals fled the forests, and winds blew from all directions at once. On the seventh day, the ark was ready. God spoke again, Enter, you and all your house. As Noah's family entered, a scream echoed in the distance. Coward, come celebrate with us. Noah looked back with pain, but then the door of the ark closed by itself, sealed by the hand of God. A dull rumble shook the valley. The birds went silent. A single drop of rain fell on the parched dust, heavy, warm, a warning. Then another. The laughter outside faltered. The wind became a roar, and the clouds swirled into the shapes of colossal eyes. Then the firmament tore apart. The floodgates of heaven opened, and water fell not as rain, but as a dense, living torrent of anger. Simultaneously, the fountains of the great deep burst forth, cracking the ground into deep veins. Inside the ark, Noah prayed as the wood trembled. Outside, panic set in. Those who mocked now ran in desperation, banging on the thick wood, screaming, Noah, open up, we believe now. But it was too late. The waters rose with relentless speed, snapping ancient trees like twigs and dissolving the towers of the Nephilim like sand. The giants, once considered gods, tried to resist, striking the water with brutal blows, one of them roaring in a desperate voice, We are eternal! But the wave rose above him, crashing down with the weight of divine justice, swallowing him whole and silencing his arrogance forever. The profane monuments of the watchers were torn from the ground, their statues crumbled, and the dark knowledge of sorcery was submerged beneath a crushing weight of water. The justice of God, ignored for generations, had fallen like an avalanche, washing the earth with both tears and rage. For 40 days and 40 nights, the storm raged until the highest peaks of Sinai and Ararat vanished. Humanity was reduced to a single family, huddled in a vessel of wood and faith, drifting over the graveyard of the old world. When the rain finally ceased, a terrifying silence fell. The roaring cities, the music, the wars of the giants. all were gone. Inside the ark, days blended into nights. "Is anyone left?" Ham whispered. "None," Noah replied, a tear tracing the lines of his weathered face. Outside, the wreckage of human pride floated aimlessly. But God had not forgotten his promise. A wind passed over the earth and the waters began to recede. The sun, hidden for months, pierced the mist, illuminating the ark as it came to rest upon the rugged peaks of Mount Ararat. Noah released a raven, then a dove, until finally an olive branch returned, a fragile green symbol of peace. When God commanded them to step forth, the door opened and light bathed the interior like a divine blessing. Animals rushed out into freedom, and Noah, overwhelmed with gratitude, built an altar on the damp soil. As the smoke of the sacrifice rose, God spoke, promising never to destroy the earth by water again. As a seal of this pact, a brilliant rainbow arched across the skies, binding heaven and earth together. Life began to bloom once more, rivers carved new paths, and birds sang in the fresh air. Yet as Noah looked at the horizon, he knew the truth. The ancient world of rebellion was buried, but the potential for evil still lingered. The earth had been cleansed, but the heart of man still needed to be transformed. This is the eternal lesson of the flood. Thank you for journeying with us through this lost history. If this story touched your spirit, please subscribe to Guardians of the Covenant and turn on notifications. Share this video with someone who needs to hear this truth. Together, let us watch for the signs and keep the faith. Until next time, may you walk in the light.